this, I think, is the problem with centralized decision making. The centralized decision makers, whether they're the conservative right wings or whether they're the progressive left wing, there's this tendency at both ends of politics, and this is why I think the spectrum, the left-right spectrum, is a bit wrong. It's I think, as you alluded to before, it's more of a sort of a diamond where you have this, more freedom, less freedom kind of thing, top to bottom, and then you got your left and right along the way, but ultimately it's actually about the more and less freedom. But these people imagine, and Daniel Andrews imagines, that he can sit down with a handful of other people and write rules that can then be safely applied to every single person and all of their personal circumstances. We're seeing a centralization of power to a degree we've never seen before in Victoria. In a way, are we actually almost, is there a silver lining here where a lot of people are looking at it going, that's what centralized power looks like? No. I don't want that. Like, is that why the Liberal Democrats are getting a lot more members and a lot more attention now?
Oh, look, I think so. It's like what I said before. People are, as they've lost some of their, in many cases, the majority of their liberties and seen the horrible effect, they realise now how important it is to defend it and have a voice that's willing to defend it, and that's what we've committed to, and I know you've committed to as well. But we're in a situation now where people ridicule the idea of liberty. Like you see these they call it freedom. People want freedom. Because they're stupid, or it's like they've forgotten the values that of the Enlightenment, they've forgotten history and what's happened throughout history, and I think maybe we haven't forgotten that. And I try and look at things big picture, right? I'm not looking at this in terms of today. I'm looking at this in terms of the future, and I want history to remember that there were some people who were there right now that said no, that stood against what the government is doing right now. Like, history has to remember this. And, I think history will. And I tell you what, when you look at history, the people that defend liberty are very rarely the bad guys.
Correct. It's amazing.
That's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it.
I don't know the name of the tank man, right, that stood in front of the row of tanks in Tiananmen Square, right? I don't know the name, and I think it is known, but there's a photograph during a speech in Nazi Germany, and there's a whole lot of people giving the Nazi salute. One person with his arms crossed. Correct, right? Now, I think we actually do know who he is. I think historians would be able to tell you what his name is. I don't know what his name is, but I know that he existed, that he lived, right, and that these people took the stand that they took, and I think that is such a psychologically powerful thing. I don't give a rat's whether history remembers my name. I couldn't care less. But if this is going to be the moment in time when Australia falls into a much more totalitarian form of government, which we're living in history right now, we don't know which way this ends. We don't know how it goes, right? But if that turns out to be that this is the moment of history that we are in, I'm determined that history will record that there were people who stood up. And I know that so are you, and I'm so grateful for that. Can I ask you, what was it that got you on this journey towards limited government, small government, from having been a progressive previously, where I'm putting words in your mouth, but you probably would have had issues where you would have happily seen the government have more power. That tends to be the profile of a progressive as well as the profile of a conservative, to now saying, actually, the government doesn't have that right. What got that thought process started for you?
So I think, like, the very first protest or the very first political action that I ever took was when I was a student, and it was the Gulf War. And all I knew was that there was going to be a war, lots of people were going to die, and it's in some faraway land, and maybe we shouldn't be involved. And that I didn't know anything about politics. I didn't know anything. And I just turned up in the city to this protest, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and they're all chanting, no blood for oil. And, like, it was about oil, apparently. That's what everyone was saying, and, probably was. But basically, I didn't want a war. And I'm still, like I said, I'm still anti-war. I was also always questioned our drug laws. You know, I always thought that, you know, why is things like cannabis illegal for adults and things like this? Like, adults can make choices. Like, surely, you know, cigars are much more harmful than cannabis, and they're legal. I
agree. I'm smoking a cigar right now, but I agree.
Yeah, and that's your right. Like, I mean, you know, I don't question that. But it's, I suppose, so I'd always had this interest in liberty and freedom of speech, as well as always been a big thing. But I also had in the back of my mind that maybe I got sucked into the idea that a lot of people get sucked into, that if only the government could pull the levers and twist the dials this particular way, then, you know, we get the settings right, and you know, it would all be good, right? And I think that's what a lot of conservatives and progressives both think. And
this is worth keeping in mind. Those people, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Their intentions are good, but they are paving the road to hell. When you concentrate power into the hands of government, you know, what's the quote? I'm going to abuse it, but a government that is powerful enough to give you everything you want is also powerful enough to take everything you have. That's been true throughout history. Every single time it's been tried. These people mean well, but what they want is actually incredibly dangerous. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no. Well, you're exactly right. Like, a lot of people look at these, you know, dictators and things throughout history, and they imagine that they're, you know, evil people, right? And now, in some cases, they were evil, but
no doubt,
in their own minds, in many cases, they thought they were doing the right thing. They were saving people. They don't do it because they think they're the bad guys. They do it because, you know, they're doing it because they, you know, all of them think that they're doing the right thing one way or another.
Making the world a better place. Yeah.
Rationale. We have a goal. Like, that's what their thinking is, you know. And if we can take control, we can do the right thing and make a utopia or whatever we're going to create.
And when we exterminate people, we're not exterminating people like you and me. We're exterminating the people that are holding us back. We have this vision of how the world can be, and if we can just get there, it'll be utopia, and we have to get rid of these people in order to get there. There's always that rationale that leads to incredibly evil actions out of this, you know, road to hell is paved with good intentions.